Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I hope everyone's been enjoying the sessions so far for this conference. So I'm Lisa Rill. I am the Executive Director of Senior Life Source. It's a nonprofit organization. We provide education on aging for all ages. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I began my career a little over 20 years ago as a social worker in the nursing homes. And then I did that for a little while and decided I wanted to go back to school. And I received my PhD in sociology with a specialization in aging and health. And so after that, I got a job at the Cloud Pepper Center at Florida State University, where I was research faculty. And I did my research focused on long-term care and quality of life. And after that, I decided to return to the people and help them, with their own decisions on care. And so I joined Senior Life Source. So that's just a little bit about me. And then I want to get started with our presentation. Okay. Just want to make sure that everything's going okay. I think. All right, so let's get started. Today's topic is why companies should care for their caregivers. I think it's fitting that I'm talking about this topic in November because it's National Family Caregivers Month. And this is a time to recognize family caregivers across the country, and it's an opportunity to raise awareness of caregiving issues and educate communities, which is why we're all here today. I just want to give you a brief outline of what we're going to cover today in this presentation. So I'm going to start with America's aging population. We'll take a look at the growth of the 65 plus age group, and then a brief look at the decline of the long-term care labor force. And the long-term care labor force, what I mean by that those are the people working in the different care communities, such as home care, assisted living, and nursing homes. Then I'm going to talk about the description of employees with caregiving responsibilities. And I want to point out there's a difference. There's two types of caregivers. There's formal caregivers and informal caregivers. The formal caregivers are ones, and that's their profession where they go to job as a caregiver, and they're paid to do that. And the other one is informal and unpaid caregivers. And those are people that go to work every day, and then they have to take care of someone, a loved one, after their full day of work. So those are the people that we're going to focus on today. We're going to look at who they are, and we're going to look at the effects on the workforce, why employers should, and the cost return on investment. So I'll show you what employers can do to help. So we'll look at benefits, and we'll find out which ones work and which ones are falling short. And I'll give you some tips. And in the final section, we'll look at examples of companies that have successful programs and policies in place. And at the end, we'll do some question and answer. I just ask that you hold your questions until the end. There's a lot of information to cover, and there's a chance that I will answer your question in the presentation. And just a quick mention that all the numbers and statistics presented today come from many different studies. So at the end, I'll provide you with a slide of references. Okay, so let's begin. So before you can understand the why, you need to identify the what. And the what in this case is what's happening in the world around us. And former First Lady Rosalind Carter said it best. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, and those who will be caregivers, those who will need caregivers. In 2019, we witnessed an international demographic shift never before seen in human history. And that was adults aged 65 and older outnumbered children for the first time. This phenomenon is known as global aging, and the US will witness a similar fate in 2030. The first of the baby boom generation began turning 65 in 2011. And since then, every 8 seconds, a person turns 65. That's 10,000 people every day over the past 10 years, and it's not slowing down yet. The number of people 85 and older are projected to increase 5-fold in the next 8 years. And these are the people that are most likely to utilize long-term care services such as rehab, in-home care, assisted living, and nursing homes, and other care communities. And by 2050, nearly 22% of all Americans will be over the age of 65. Medical advances have extended our lives longer than ever before, well past the standard retirement age. But at the same time, the long-term care workforce is unable to meet the needs of our rapidly aging population for many reasons, which I won't go into today, but I will say that it began long, long before COVID. So the bottom line is, for the long-term care workforce to keep pace with substantial increase in the aging population, it would need to grow at a minimum by more than 2% each year. However, it's currently expected to increase by 0.3%. And actually this number was pre-COVID, so it could be less. Why is this important? The growth of an aging population combined with a shortage of formal paid caregivers in the labor force means that working family members are having to care for their aging loved ones. And for some, these changes have created something called the sandwich generation. These are adults who are caring for an aging parent or an aging loved one, along with raising a young child or supporting a grown child. But it's not only affecting them, it also reaches younger age groups and older workers who have delayed retirement as well. So as a result, both employees and employers are suffering. Now, caregiving has become a universal reality, not only for the individual, but also for corporate America. There's no industry, profession, company, or job title that's exempt. At some point in your life, you or someone close to you will need care, and possibly both. Caregivers in general are becoming as diverse as the American population. And employers often do not recognize just how many of their employees are caregivers or how prevalent caregiving responsibilities are for them. So let's take a quick look at who they are. So again, we're looking at the informal caregivers. 61% of employees in the US are caregivers. And although most people think it's just affecting boomers and the Gen Xers, 25% are millennials. 4 out of 10 are part-time, are part of the sandwich generation. 60% work full-time. And they work on average an additional 20+ hours per week on caregiving responsibilities. 68% of full-time employees do not receive any financial assistance for their caregiving responsibilities. And although men are often employed more than women while caregiving, and on average they work more hours than women who are employed, however, this is possibly because women are 3 times more likely than men to reduce hours or to leave the workforce to become full-time caregivers. Now, why should employers care? While employers are expressing difficulty in finding experienced workers, many of the skilled and productive workers that they do have are struggling every day to integrate work and caregiving responsibilities. And caregiving can take a toll on an employee's job performance, which in turn, of course, affects business operations and companies' bottom line. Now, there are two types of hidden costs associated with caregiving that I would like to review with you. The first one is turnover. The frequency of turnover is a hidden cost when an experienced employee leaves, when the employer must recruit and train new employee or outsource their work. You also have the cost of lost institutional knowledge. This is when a senior level or a highly skilled employee leaves with valuable experience. It diminishes the company's talent pool. And then you have temporary hiring and overtime, and the cost to cover the lost work from the loss of an employee. The other cost of care is productivity loss. So there's absenteeism, and that's when an employee comes in late or has to leave early or doesn't show up. Presenteeism is a distracted worker. It's when they're trying to multitask between work and caregiving responsibilities. You have unexpected events, and those are causes that an employee to have to disrupt their workday, such as maybe a medical emergency. And then you have replacement, when employees must pick up the slack from another employee's absence. I feel it's important to note that only around half of the employers track data on their employees who are caregivers. And even less, only around 26% gather information on their employees' needs related to care responsibilities. Therefore, many do not know the impact it has on their employees' productivity. The failure to understand these issues is a main reason for the misalignments between what benefits companies currently provide and what employees need. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But first, let's take a look at how prevalent these hidden costs are. "61% of employees reported that they had to rearrange their work schedule or decrease their hours or take an unpaid leave to care for a loved one. Over half arrive to work late, leave early, or take time off due to their caregiving responsibilities. 1/3 of all US employees have already left a job during their career to manage an unmet caregiving responsibility. When looking at the different age groups, you can see that 50% with the highest percentage is age 26 to 35. Here's an interesting finding in one of the studies that employees with higher titles, such as senior executives and leaders in all age groups, are most likely to be affected. And many have already left a position due to conflicts with caregiving responsibilities. For example, in the 26 to 35 age group, 61% were senior leaders. Now, this is a huge loss of institutional knowledge. And 41% of senior executives and leaders said that caregiving responsibilities negatively affected their career versus 18% of other employees. So as you can see, there is a price of losing talented and trained employees. It's time for employers to calculate the cost of care for their company. By not accounting for costs like reduced productivity and increased turnover, it's not surprising that few employers know the true return on investment that can be generated from providing care benefits to their employees. More than $11 trillion of unpaid caregiving is done annually, and the lack of employee benefits focused on this issue is driving them from the workforce. And for companies, it's not just conceptual, it's a matter of money lost. US businesses that fail to address these matters pay the price. They lose between $17.1 billion and $33.6 billion annually on lost productivity alone, and depending on the level of caregiving involved. So just a quick thought experiment. Do you have any idea how much your organization is losing? And how much would you save if you could cut these costs by just 5%? Something to think about. So now we'll look at return on investment generated from some care benefits. One study analyzed published evidence of return on investments for the care benefits with focus on flex time and telework. Now, these are two widely known types of benefits. And here's a couple examples of their findings. For every dollar invested in flex time, businesses could expect a return of between $1.70, and that's assuming the average annual salary is $50,000, and $4.34, assuming the average annual salary is $100,000. About half of the ROI is explained by lower absenteeism, about 30% by increased retention, and about 20% by better recruitment. For every dollar invested in telecommuting, businesses could expect a return of between $2.46, again, assuming the average annual salary is $50,000, and $4.45, also assuming the average annual salary is $100,000. Another study found that if family caregivers aged 50 plus had access to support in their workplace, that alone could contribute to the growth of the US GDP by an additional 1.7 trillion in 2030. And just to put that in perspective, that's equivalent to the state of New York's total economy. In fact, 75% of workers who retired early from work because of family caregiving reported that they would have stayed on the job if they had access to better support. As you can see, this reality has significant implications for businesses and the economy. Family caregivers of all ages are major contributors to companies and the overall economy. Policies that support employees can benefit companies with their bottom line and the economy by enhancing productivity, along with enabling employees to keep up with their caregiving responsibilities. Let's take a moment now to reflect on the specific reasons for why employees leave a job. Only 24% of employers recognize that caregiving had a direct impact on their employees' performance. So it may surprise many of you to learn that employees often make the decision to quit because they don't get the right kind of support they need from their employers. When caregivers have particular work benefits, they're less likely to stop working altogether. Employees with caregiving responsibilities who recently left their position most commonly did so because of the following reasons. First, to have more time to care for their loved one. The inability to find trustworthy and qualified paid help. Now, this ties back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this session about the long-term care labor force shortage. So even if you have the means to pay for the care, there's a possibility that you will have difficulty finding qualified paid help. Then there's the inability to meet work responsibilities, or the job did not allow flexible work hours or paid time off. And finally, the cost of paid help was unaffordable. Well, what do you mean by unaffordable? I just want to give you some idea of the costs here in San Diego. Let's take a look. The hourly median costs in San Diego 2020 for in-home care runs about $30 an hour. And this is both for non-medical caregiving services and medical caregiving services. So non-medical being someone comes to your home and helps your loved one with activities of daily living, such as helping them shower or make a meal or get dressed and maybe do some errands. Whereas medical caregiving is someone that can come in and help maybe provide a shot of insulin for your loved one or something more medical And they both run about the same. So if you look at about 20 hours a week, that would be $600, and monthly about $2,400. And most of these places do require a minimum number of hours. That's not cheap. Okay, let's look at community and assisted living and nursing homes. So on a monthly basis, an adult daycare can run a little over $1,700 a month. And that's when you take your loved one to a place and they watch them for the day and they provide them with activities. Assisted living community can cost over $4,500 a month. And a private room in a nursing home can run you over $14,000 a month. So looking at it annually, an adult daycare can cost $20,800 annually. An assisted living will run you a little over $54,000 annually. And a private room in the nursing home is a little over $173,000. And if you just take a look, the change since 2019 was a 26.5% increase just in 1 year. Now, in a time of labor force shortages, productive workers who have proven themselves are invaluable assets. If you think of it in terms of return on investments, employers' highest priority should be retaining and improving the productivity of their current workforce by addressing these issues that I just mentioned for why employees leave a job. Empowering them to become even more productive and reliable is beneficial to the company's performance. So in addition to maintaining stability in operations, employee retention allows companies to prevent the substantial costs incurred when replacing a worker, such as with those hidden costs, turnover, and lost productivity. Okay, now the good stuff. What can employers do to help? I feel employers have a responsibility to take action. Caregivers make up the backbone of our economy, yet our workplaces are not built to support the care we need at each stage of life. And I hope by now it's clear for companies that offer care benefits, the advantage goes beyond improving employee engagement. It allows employees to do their best work. It has the potential to create a high return on investment for the employer. And something that I haven't mentioned yet is it can be an important source of competitive advantage for attracting new talented workers. So for example, if I applied to some jobs and 2 places wanted to hire me, one provided a care benefit and the other didn't, and I was a caregiver, let's say for my mother, I would be more likely to choose the employer who provided the care benefit. So again, it gives you that competitive advantage. So let's take a moment to identify the different types of care benefits. And I'm going to separate them into 2 categories, accommodative and appropriative benefits. Accommodative benefits provide adjustable work environments and do not require additional expenditures for the employer. So I'll just go through some of these are just examples. It's not all of them. So you have flexible work hours, give the gift of time, family leave and flex time. Some companies offer a leave of absence that's paid, unpaid, or a combination of the 2 so that they can attend to their loved one's needs for an extended period of time. And this can be especially useful during intense times of transition, maybe from a hospital to a rehab or another living situation. And then you have working from home and telecommuting. And of course, those are for those employees who don't have to be on site to do their work. And then there's voluntary reduced time and part-time work. Job sharing, and that's when you have 2 part-time employees jointly do a full-time job. And then there's personal time and maternity and paternity leave. And while accommodative benefits are useful, it doesn't necessarily solve the caregiving challenges that employees face or guarantee that they'll be able to figure things out on their own. And that's where these appropriative benefits come into play. So these benefits provide support services. Now, they can require a direct expenditure by the employer, but not always. There are inexpensive and free resources out there. You just need to know where to look. So let's go through some examples of these benefits. Counseling services. Maybe you want to provide once a month for your employee to discuss legal or financial or any social needs that they may have. There are caregiver provider referral services. Some of you may know this as Employee Assistance Program. These provide navigation resources to help you find in-home care, pay for care, determine which legal documents you need. There are coordinator support services who work with your employees and their loved ones to determine their care needs. They objectively assess and evaluate the situation, and they can even prepare a personalized care plan. Next, you have seminars, classes, or educational panels on different aging topics with local experts, and you can connect them to the resources directly. Now, these tend to be inexpensive and provide bite-sized, digestible information on the topics that your employees are interested in. So these topics can include basic training on medical tasks or medication management, assistance with filling out benefit forms such as Medicare and Medicaid, or Medi-Cal in this case, or advanced care directives. It could be a topic on financial literacy and retirement, housing and long-term care options, information on dementia, estate planning, aging services, and the list can go on. You also have caregiving support groups and networks. Some large companies offer an employee resource group for employees caregiving for an older adult. Employees experiencing similar caregiving challenges may meet regularly to share resources and support. They can establish their own groups and include meeting spaces and ways for members to communicate and coordinate scheduling. Next is subsidy for care services and products. And you can get creative with this. Do you want to match the cost of care? Maybe for 1 month, 6 months, a year. You know, not all caregiving responsibilities are forever. You can also match the cost of transportation services or grocery delivery, long-term care insurance, respite services, personal emergency response systems such as wearable tech, and home monitoring to keep loved ones safe at home. Some companies even offer dependent care flexible spending accounts. And finally, there's on-site or near-site care services, such as the adult daycare. Now, unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. As you know, businesses come in all sizes with different levels of resources and a diverse workforce. So if you learn anything from this presentation today, it should be this, that it's more than just providing any care benefits. It must be the right kind of care benefits. Simply providing benefit programs selected from a list like the ones I just provided without any input from your employees will not be enough. By understanding the type of care benefits your employees want, you can make sensible investments to increase employee productivity and loyalty. And once you've made that decision, the next step is making sure your employees know what's available to them. Make sure they know. One survey found that of employees who offered some type of caregiving resource, 71% of their workers were unaware of the offerings, and only 34% had taken advantage of them. So there's something wrong there. Maybe they're not offering the right kind of benefit. Here's a closer look at why this might be happening. Another survey compared employer and employee opinions, and they asked them both which caregiving benefits were the most valuable for staying on the job. And the findings revealed that there is a misalignment between 3 things. what the employers think their employees want, what the companies currently provide, and what employees want and need. So for example, in this survey, employees said that the most popular benefit for retention was referral services for caregivers. So that's an appropriate benefit. 78% of employees said that benefit was very important to their decision to stay with their company. However, only 38% of employers considered these caregiver referral services as an effective benefit for retaining their employees, and only 29% of the employers offered that benefit. And when employers were asked that same question, what's the most effective benefit for retaining employees, they responded with subsidies for elder care services, another appropriate benefit. And around 70% of those employers described that benefit as very effective, yet fewer than 10% of the employers offered that benefit. The extent of this misalignment suggests that employers are inadequately informed about the needs and preferences of their workforce. By not offering benefits that employees want or encouraging them to use the benefits that they offer, the companies are losing their valuable employees. That's why investing in workplace well-being through care benefits is a critical pathway to cultivating a sustainable workforce. Now let's get into some tips for building a company that cares for its caregivers. First, begin by creating a culture of awareness. You do this by providing education and training for all staff, especially managers, on the challenges caregivers face with regards to the impact on the job and in their personal life. And this can help dispel incorrect assumptions and stereotypes about caregiving employees. Second, provide a safe space for an open dialogue where employees of all levels can share their caregiving experiences. So remember, I mentioned earlier that the high-level executives are most likely to be affected, and many have already left a position due to conflicts with caregiving responsibilities. Hearing their stories can help decrease stigma and normalize these types of conversations. The more open everyone is with the situation, the more likely the employees will trust that they will not be penalized for their caregiving responsibilities and use the benefits offered by the employer. So why is it that most people in the workplace are comfortable maybe talking about the fact that they need to leave work early to take their kid to a dentist appointment, but it's less likely to hear someone say that they're leaving work early to take their mom to the doctor, right? Because there's the stigma behind these caregiving responsibilities. So 3, conduct a care census. Learn what % of your employees are caregivers. How many are part of the sandwich generation? Who's preparing to retire in the next 1 to 5 years? How many have cut back on hours, taken a leave of absence, passed up a transfer, or quit due to their caregiving responsibilities? And if you're worried about privacy issues, it's okay. It can be an anonymous survey. 4, conduct a benefits survey. And this is where you ask your employees about their view of the current benefit offerings. Ask them what additional benefits and resources would be most valuable to them to better manage their lives and become healthier and more productive workers. And again, this can be an anonymous survey. 5, review what you offer. Compare your current care benefits, both accommodative and appropriative, with the requests of your employees, and also take a look at what other companies are offering. There are numerous ways in which employers can support employee caregivers in the workforce, no matter an organization's size, industry, or resources. Based on survey results and interviews with the employees, you can evaluate and decide what programs to implement. 6, make sure all employees are aware of the benefits you offer, right? You don't want to have 71% of your employees being unaware. There is no advantage to either the company or the employees if the benefits are not utilized. How do you do this? Develop a lunch and learn program. Educate your employees about caregiving and what your company is doing to support them. Employers should ensure that managers on all levels are aware of the company's policies regarding the benefits that employees can access and should encourage them to openly support employees using these benefits. Okay, 7, employers should reassure employees that their careers won't be ruined if they take advantage of caregiving resources, and that they can discuss how to manage caregiving responsibilities with their employers. Now, a survey of more than 3,000 caregivers found that 40% felt caregiving strained their relationship with their employers. And 28% said their employer took an adverse action against them, including things like giving them a less attractive assignment, or writing them up, or passing them over for a promotion. Number 8, it's important for your benefits team to provide hands-on assistance with the implementation of any new interactive resources or tools. So many companies will offer a list of resources with just some links to websites and consider that to be a sufficient care benefit. For example, here's a list of all the non-medical caregiving service providers in the area. However, caregivers operate under enormous stress and time constraints. So this seemingly simple act of searching for services from your resource list or learning to use a new tool such as a wearable tech may prove to be an overwhelming barrier for a caregiver, especially for those who are working, full-time and then also providing that additional 20 hours a week in caring for their loved one. Number 9, you can add additional benefits that address unmet needs as experimental or a permanent basis. Be creative. And the last 2 are pretty self-explanatory. You need to monitor the utilization rates of each benefit and assess the impact of the benefits, both from the perspective of the employee and on the finances associated with reduced turnover and improved productivity. When employees have support at work and the tools to better manage their responsibilities, they experience less depression. Offering a variety of caregiving benefits, sends a message to employees that the employer is invested in them and their emotional, physical, and mental health. Committing to a strategy that provides care benefits and designing the policies required to execute them might take some extra time and resources up front. But overall, it shouldn't be too hard or too costly. The care advantage goes well beyond improving employee engagement. It has the potential, again, to be an important source of competitive advantage for attracting new talent. The good news is there are many forward-thinking employers who have already decided that caregiver benefits should be an essential part of their benefits package. So in this final section, I'll provide you with some examples that will hopefully inspire you to do the same. And you'll notice that they include both accommodative and appropriative benefits. Microsoft offers 4 weeks of paid leave for caregivers with 8 additional weeks of unpaid time. CBS employees receive up to 15 days annually of emergency backup care services, and this is when there's a disruption in regular care arrangements. Alliance Life provides quarterly educational workshops on various topics for their caregivers. Emory University has a 24/7 call center, which provides answers to caregiving questions. Deloitte allows employees up to 16 weeks of paid time off annually for caregiving. Fannie Mae has an on-site geriatric consultant who provides free unlimited services to employees. Cigna Corp offers a benefit called Caregiver Leave Program, which gives its US employees up to 4 weeks of paid leave for employees caring for others. And finally, Facebook allows up to 6 weeks of paid leave within a rolling 12-month period to be with a family member who is ill. They also offer bereavement leave policy that's 10 days for an extended family member and 20 days for an immediate family member. And the interesting part is that it can be non-consecutive days of paid leave because they recognize that grief is a process and it can happen suddenly and it can come and go over time, for instance, during the holidays or for an anniversary or maybe a birthday. So as a nation, I feel we've failed to take the rising burden of unpaid care seriously. And because of that, so many of your employees are suffering. The OECD reported in 2020, when they looked at the work-life balance index, out of 40 countries, the US ranked number 29. But we can do better. The reason I gave this talk today was to raise awareness around critical issues that we're all facing. My call to action to you is to be proactive in terms of how you envision the future of your workplace to be. Become a corporate leader, pioneer innovative solutions, create and share your best practices, inspire other companies to follow in your path. And most importantly, we need to normalize this discussion around aging. And I hope that you learn that the idea is not to simply spend extra money and just offer more benefits, but to find the ways to support your employee caregivers. By incorporating community resources and taking advantage of favorable programs, you can create a cultural shift that celebrates and supports the lives of your employees more effectively, and in turn can help create a productive and sustainable workforce for your company. So as I said, here's a list of my references. This will be available to you along with my other presentation slides. But now I just want to have the remaining of our time for question and answer.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, very much. Great talk. And I just want to open up the floor here and see if anybody in our audience has some questions or comments that they'd like to share today. So if you do, you can put the question in the chat and I will share it and we can discuss this, or you can unmute and just talk.
I don't think they can unmute because it's webinar, but they can put it in the chat.
All right.
Give people some time to type some questions.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'll go ahead and ask a question on behalf of the audience.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
So if I'm an employer, you give me a lot of really valuable information, but where would I start? Like, what would be the first thing that I should do if I wanted to act on this information and start improving how we take care of our caregivers?
I would start with some of the tips that I mentioned. Most importantly, maybe doing some kind of care consensus survey where you find out more about your employees. That would be where I would start, because until you know who they are and what they need, then you can't really provide benefits that might be particularly useful to them.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience want to follow up on this question?
No questions. I guess I covered everything. Anyone want any more information Anything that they would like me to expand upon?
All right, well, why don't you close off, Lisa, by just letting people know where they can get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation and
Sure,
learn
of
some more.
course. Yes, if you look on the screen here and you'd like to reach out for more information or services, you can reach me at lisa@seniorlifesource.org or my website, seniorlifesource.org. And then also you can feel free to call me too.
Okay, and is there anybody else with Senior Life Source that people can talk to?
Yes, we have our two co-founders, Ted Lang, he is a certified financial planner, and also Carol Lindsay, she is the executive director of a non-medical caregiving company. So
Great.
a lot of great people to answer your questions. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, we're going to hang out for a few minutes. So if you think of a question in the next 5 minutes or so, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And if not, then have a great rest of your week and live well.